Despite punitive transfers targeting members of the Dissident Syndicate of Medical Doctors of Cameroon, CMEC, various public hospitals have been witnessing operations slow down since Monday as medics push ahead with a strike action debuted in April. And while the doctors are crying foul and promising harsher action, Cameroon's main opposition party, the STF, is threatening legal action against a couple of French-speaking newspapers, alleging it received 6.5 billion CFA francs from the government, only to turn around and announce a boycott of National Day celebrations on May the 20th. This is Tough Talk, and thanks for keeping us in your company. We'll be right back. And as usual, the Tough Talkers are here. Kejan Henry Atembe, good morning.
Good morning, Divine. Good morning to our televiewers. Good morning to some other person.
Who's that?
Whom we are going to introduce.
Elie Smith, you're flanking me on the right.
Yes.
Welcome, bro.
It was a pleasure to be here, beginning with a note of humor from Kejan Henry Atembe.
Now let's leave the humor aside and get in straight into business with our first icebreaker. Last Friday, and that's how I stay on with you, Elie Smith. Last Friday, dock workers at the Douala port in Cameroon's economic capital engaged a sitting strike action. They actually blocked access to the facility and they stalled exports and imports of vital revenue earners for Cameroon, like 3,000 tons of cocoa, 12 tons of coffee were stranded.
Exactly, and I even got the news from one of our colleagues here. It was Regina Leke, who perhaps was the first person to be on the beat, and then reported that the problem is a poor working condition out there at the ports. And then I think what really sparked the anger of the dockers was simply because one of theirs died because of poor working.
A day earlier. That was on Thursday last week because the strike actually commenced on Friday last week.
Exactly. It just shows how we are living in a country whereby the government and if private or government institutions fail to respect basic rights for workers. And I think that's the reason why those people decided to strike. And I thought at a point in time that the government was going to listen to their plea, but it appears the leaders of the trade unions, of the dockers union, instead went and was trying to connive with the management or with
port administration.
With port administration. You see, that's the problem in this country whereby people you put them who must lead are often corrupt.
Okay.
And,
and as we speak, Kejan Henry Atembe, we have images of Douala. We're going to zoom into the Douala port precisely in the next couple of seconds. But as we speak, the dockers have resumed their strike action since last night. We're talking about Monday evening after negotiations between the port administration and the trade union leaders for the dockers collapsed.
Yes, they have resumed, and it is just a replica of what happened when negotiations collapsed between the government and the lawyers or the Anglophone Civil Society Consortium. So now when talks collapse, they have to go back because generally the government is always not ready to give in to some of the demands of the workers. But then if they have to go back, it is commendable for them to do that. It is their right to strike. And that is why when I watched the images, the forces of law and order were there to contain them, not to beat them as it used to be. Because now it is a time to understand that people have the right to strike. It is their human right.
Elie Smith was, and I stay on with you, Elie Smith was mentioning this a couple of moments ago. He actually said, well, the dockers had their stance radicalized because they realized that their staff delegates actually went to negotiate behind closed doors with the port administration, and they think that they were bought over because they came back and told them to resume operations.
It is convinced that they were bought over. I'm a staff representative of this house.
Canal International.
Yes. The day you hear me twist my tongue, they know that I've leaked some oil. So it is obvious that the people came out from the negotiations and they did not give them anything concrete.
Okay.
If they had given them something concrete, they would have gone back to work.
Okay.
But since they went back, they discovered that it smells actually a trick, a game played by the staff representative with the ports administration. And so from every evidence, we could believe that they were probably bought over.
Hoodwinked. The talks
hoodwinked.
were actually not meant to
address
their grievances. Elie Smith, one of those grievances, the stevedores or the dockers or the dock workers. I mean, I was speaking with a colleague in London who said, Divine, you don't say dockers. And I said, no, I have it in my dictionary. And he said, no, I'm in London. But so let's call them dock workers for the sake of English language purists.
Exactly.
Well, one of the main reasons, the immediate causes for the strike action was the fact that, well, these people, they're expected to carry, unload at least 500 bags of rice, for example, within 1 hour. They are paid 205 CFA francs per bag they unload. Now, if you even calculate that amount, 205 francs times 8 hours, which means they carry 500 bags every hour.
Every hour, yeah.
That's chicken feed.
Exactly.
That's reason enough to go on strike.
Of course, that's reason enough to go on strike because it amounts to kind of slavery because those workers, and the other thing is that there are other gratuities that they need to have. They don't even have them. And sometimes we talk about competitivity. Some people will think that's the reason why it's that way. But the thing is that even the working condition is appalling. Someone can easily fall into the sea and nothing is going to happen. Right. The main or the prerequisite for security, none is being taken into consideration. Or the safety, brilliant. And this thing happens simply because even though I'm a person who is speaking to who is a liberal, I don't have this idea of protectionism. The thing is, when you have one single French company controlling everything at the ports of Douala, I think that's the reason why you have what is happening today.
I understand you're referring to Bolloré, African Logistics.
Exactly.
I'm not sure if they have any hands
in that, but I suspect they should because why is it that? Because I think it was during a program here called Newsroom, and they said they have bought new machines or new cranes that will be able to upload or offload ships that come to more at the Douala seaports. And if you do just
that's for the container terminal.
Right. But I think that before doing all those things, if a port wants to be modern, it should be modern from the beginning to the end. Yes. You should not cherry pick the modernity of what you want to do. Okay. And I also think on the other hand, the labor ministry of this country really needs to do its work, and those who are appointed to represent the staffs of those dock workers should really be sincere. And the problem of Cameroon is that the leadership of such organizations are never sincere. Okay. And it's not just about the dock workers. We have a similar case which happened with the people at the Yaoundé University Teaching Hospital, the quiz. When the leaders went there to negotiate with the Minister of Higher Education, what they instead did was that they negotiated for their own pockets at the expense of those they were supposed to lead.
And that's the greater majority.
And the greater majority. And I think that's the reason that's the same thing happening today at the ports of Douala, where those who are supposed to defend the people they voted for are there to negotiate for their own pockets. And I think Kenyan said something here. It has become a kind of Cameroonian problem. Okay. We had the same thing with the lawyers and the teachers. The difference now is that the representatives of the lawyers, the Anglophone lawyers and the Anglophone teachers, were honest with their base. Okay. And that's the reason why the government got angry and threw them in jail.
Money could not convince them.
Even though some of them have been accused of having, enlarged their wallets with money received from the government. I can think of the attacks on Tame Valentine, the TAC, or Teachers Association of Cameroon president. He's had several of his cars set ablaze recently, but that's not our focus, Henry. One of the immediate causes for the dock workers' action is the fact that out of 12 grievances they tabled before the administration of the Douala Port Authority, only one was actually embraced during talks Monday night, and that one is the institution of basic salaries for these people. Now here's a reminder of what happens.
Come on.
From the revenue they make, 5,200 CFA francs is deducted per head. There are 4,000 dock workers at the Douala Port. 5,200 francs deducted as insurance money, which is virtually inexistent. These people go to hospital, and when they spend 2 weeks on hospital beds, they are chased out because they say their insurance money is done with.
Yes, I understand, and I know what I'm talking about. There is a hospital for the dock workers just adjacent to the Ports Authority, in fact, to the ports where the ships moor, where the vessels moor. This is an up-to-date hospital. It's standardized. I can attest to that. But the point is, the exorbitant charges, because what does a dock worker earn a day when you offload a vessel that moors? Because the vessel normally has a time frame that it has to quit the port, you know, to create access, and you know the cost of mooring. You're talking about 205. I did some arithmetic of 205 times 8. I had something like 1,720, which means
per hour.
Per hour.
If they manage to unload.
That is a load that
500 bags of rice, for example.
Yes, a docker has to, in fact, pull out from the ship. You can imagine what it takes for a human being who is not compared to Boxer, the imagery in Animal Farm that George Orwell painted. It becomes difficult, and they stretch out. Don't forget that these guys die very quickly, and they are always exposed to terrible accidents. That is why the administration, the former port administration, did everything to make sure they have the hospital that they have, because they could rush there for emergency. But this amount is not replicated in their insurance policy, which comes to tell you that the insurance companies in this country are the richest, because the last financial report that came, insurance were even richer than the banks in Cameroon.
They've got lots of more
money,
liquidity than
the banks. And so it is evident that these people go on strike and ask for this money.
Okay, now away from the Douala River port, because technically speaking, it's not a seaport, Elie Smith.
It is an estuary.
It's an estuary port or river port, like some say. So away from that, and to some good news happening for residents or users of the Baju-Bamenda road stretch. You know, a couple of months ago, that was the major talking point among residents of the west and, of course, northwest regions of Cameroon. Public Works Minister Emmanuel Nganu Jume says about now launching the effective rehabilitation of that road stretch is going to cost about 60.7 billion CFA francs. Part of that money is a loan from the World Bank. It's not strange, Elie Smith.
Yes,
we're always going for the loans.
We are always
to fix our own things.
Exactly, going cap in hands, because we are a bunch of people who are not serious. We don't know how to manage. But anyway, the good thing, because we can always criticize, but in order to be objective, there are good things. That stretch of road, beside the stretch of road, which is about 50 kilometers, if I'm not wrong, there's going to...
About 35. If you add up 12 kilometers elsewhere, there's another access road into Bamenda, which doesn't cut across the station.
Exactly, but that stretch of road will also be tarred, and then I think within the city of Bamenda, they're also going to tar the city, because in a deplorable state, and that's the reason why Mancho BBC was decrying, and that's the reason why he went also to jail, which is a kind of paradox. And there's also going to be another extension of the road to link with the Bamenda Manfe Abakaliki stretch of road. That is the Trans-African Highway. That's a good part of it. But the other bad of thing in it is that must the Anglophones be killed or maimed before anything is done to them? Because every time in this country, even the GC board, as I said, they must kill Anglophone before the GC board is created. And when they create it, they try to hoodwink it, they try to pull some strings behind. We know the story of Thatcher and Azonwara that did everything to happen, but we can congratulate the World Bank for coming to the aid of the Cameroonian government to macadamize that stretch of road. My only fear is that it should really be macadamized, respecting the standards, and that the money should not be stolen.
Okay, that's a beautiful call to order, Elie Smith. Kejan Henry, some say better late than never. But the question many would be asking at this point in time is, a couple of months ago, the leader or the national chairman of the Social Democratic Front actually went out and chased a couple of workers at the toll gate along that very road stretch. Now you go to borrow money, and people are asking, where is the money you collect from all the toll gates around the country? This could finance the reconstruction of that road stretch.
Let me tell you, if you don't know, when you move to Yaoundé, around Liksono, just adjacent to the transport agency, touristic voyage, somewhere around there you have the Department of Road Maintenance. In fact, money that they collect for taxes. Yes, money that they collect for that. We asked ourselves the question, don't forget that some time ago, Jean-Jacques Ekidi, when he was in the parliament, spent a whole day at the Mujuka toll gate here in before Mbanga,
Yes.
Jean-Jacques Ekindi spent, because he was a member of the finance committee. I wanted to know what the toll gate makes a day. That was just for one toll gate, which means that if you count, it suffices to multiply by the number of toll gates along the Douala, Bafoussam or Bamenda highway. You will see that the government makes a lot of monies from these toll gates. It is a paradox, like Elie said, and as you quite rightly point out, the chairman of the Social Democratic Front had chased out these people because it took 4 hours to leave Bamenda to Buda at a distance of less than 60 kilometers an hour. Okay. So you could understand.
At a velocity of less than 60
At a velocity of, exactly.
Yes.
So, but you see, my worry is that the Kumba-Manfe Road is the African Development Bank that's sponsored. Now this one is here with the World Bank. The Mundemba or Kumba-Mundemba Road towards Bakassi, it is still part of the African Development and World Bank that is going to sponsor. The west entrance to Douala, which is still ongoing, is the CDD fund. So it be 52 billion. It is not small money. So it becomes a paradox. But the question is, why is it now? When I listened to the radio that Gadu Jumesi was going, I said, okay, thank God. They are gradually understanding that these people had a problem. My first question was Mancho BBC right or wrong? Because about part of the road would be to, or the money would be to macadamize the network within the town. Okay. And that was Mancho's cry, and not because somebody somewhere or he was against anybody. Mancho had his problem, and that was his problem.
Elie Smith, I mean, some describe you as one of the few Cameroonians who probably spends more time abroad than home. When you go out, you see those automatic toll gates. Why is it such a big deal bringing them home?
It's a big deal here because we, as I've always said, and I will say it here, we have a bunch of people ruling us who are not patriotic. And so most often we tend to copy, or I don't want to talk about what is going on in France or in the United States because, well, we cannot compare both countries with us. But look at a country like Nigeria. There is this highway, I think the Lekki Expressway in Lagos, which is a kind of...
Actually saw it a couple of days ago.
You saw it, right? Which is a kind of partnership between the federal government, I think the Lagos state government.
And there was a lot of embezzlement around the process.
And there was a lot of embezzlement. But on the thing is that something happened anyway. But why is it that we cannot copy what happens in friendly or neighboring countries and bring it back here? The only thing is that Cameroonian administrators, especially the government of Paul Biya, is too corrupt to the marrows of their bones that they cannot do anything which is good. Like the thing which is happening in Bamenda or in Manfe. You know, this Manfe road, I wanted to see the type of work of art that will be done because it is 56 years old, that road. Right. Because the first time it was inaugurated, it was in 1964 by a certain man called Paul Tessa. But the good thing about it is that the road was destroyed and then inaugurated as finished. Because in the side check of Amadou Aijo then, the West Cameroon should not have a good relationship with Nigeria. Right. On the contrary, that was when they started laying the foundation of Anglophones to be suspicious about what is going on. And now that is the World Bank financing everything, it means that we are going to be indebted again. But the bad thing in it is that they will do it, but the money is going to be embezzled. Without the Manfe road, which is under construction, look at the ring road. And this thing, I suspect that it is because the elections are coming next year, and then this a kind of trying to sweeten the minds of people, manipulating, cajoling the Anglophones. But I think they have done that for 56 years. The young Anglophones now will not be deceived with this type of promises of roads that
because they don't understand what is happening.
No. And let me just
keep it by saying that in 1986 the flyover was constructed. The flyover that we have at Bakwa Super. Now the construction started after Bakwa Super and ended in Guti just before you have Eyang. So it was just a small stretch that they constructed, but then the bulk of it from Kumba to Manfe was never constructed, and so it had to.
I understand it's because
we're about 20
because
minutes.
Because of Kangaki.
We are about 20 minutes down the road, and if we don't start tackling our major talking points, we'll probably be late with some of them. When we come back, our first major discussion topic will be striking doctors demanding Minister Mama Fuda's head. Don't you go away. So, public hospitals across Cameroon have been witnessing go-slows in their operations since Monday as doctors push ahead with a strike action. That's the second round of a strike action debuted in April this year. The doctors are demanding better working conditions, an increase in their retirement age, universal coverage for all Cameroonians, and of course several other grievances which are still waiting to be addressed. But before we go on, here is a summary of what the doctors really want. I'm not sure any of you have been to hospital since Monday, Henry Kejang, but well, I've been to hospital. I was in hospital yesterday. The general impression you get from the administrators is that everything is okay, but the patients you meet around these infrastructure will tell you that the services are only being minimally dished out.
Yes, they are minimally dished
out. That's a
out.
purely Cameroonian way of handling
crisis.
Such crisis.
Good. You know, when normally the CIMEC actually sent out a communique that they were going to carry out minimum service, and there were some departments like emergency departments, you know, the
doctors on call.
Doctors on call, you know, for emergency issues and so on. But that is just a picture of what is happening in the country. Just to say that if you put it the other way, you would think that, well, schools are going on, or schools were going on in West Cameroon, whereas schools were not going on, and so the government actually had to pretend as if schools were going on.
Right.
So you saw teachers going to school, but then the children did not come and they were not teaching. So the doctors are there, they got instructions from their trade union or from their union leaders, which is a good thing, because sometimes you need to push the government to the wall to grant in some concessions. But where the government has faulted is the fact that the government is struggling now to tear apart the leaders, you know, rather than trying to solve the problem.
Okay. Now we'll be coming to talk about these issues in greater detail. Remember, Minister Andre Mamafuda, Cameroon's Minister of Public Health, is on record as having qualified CIMEC, that's a Syndicate of Medical Doctors of Cameroon, as an illegal entity. That's a blunder, Elie Smith.
A big blunder, and I don't understand why Mr. Mamafuda cannot learn from the mistakes of Laurent Issou and then
Famendongo
and
of higher education.
And higher education of Professor Paul Guguma and all those.
That's the advisor in the Prime Minister's office.
Prime Minister, because what Fuda is doing,
yes, Mama, he's
just trying to pour fuel on a kind of blazing fire already.
It's
so
like sprinkling salt on a gaping wound.
exactly.
But the question, why would the officials of these hospitals be interested in downplaying the magnitude of the crisis?
Simply because the officials are afraid sometimes of their position, the position in which they are holding, and some often they are supporting the government, because we also have a government that is so tribal. There are many people leading these hospitals who belong to the tribe of the president, and who think that saying the truth is strengthening the stranglehold of power that they are controlling today. That's the reason why sometimes they are afraid to say the truth.
Okay. Now, Henry Kejang, we're going to go out and meet Tabby Clarkson to paint a picture of what's happening across hospitals in Cameroon's capital, Yaoundé, in the next couple of minutes. But before then, a similar approach featured high on the menu when the strike arranged by the Syndicate of Medical Doctors of Cameroon began mid last month. That's in April, Henry. But the striking doctors' demands, and if you look at them closely, will benefit almost all Cameroonians, because among others, they're calling for universal medical coverage, not for themselves, but for the entire
Cameroonians. Yes, they are extremely correct. Don't forget that they are working in tandem with the hypocritical oath, or how do you call it?
Of which hypocrisy is being made now, some say.
Well, not like that. Well, to save humanity before money.
All right.
I think that is the first thing. But when we get to a point where, you know, the doctors at one point in time have been derated by the government, where you see even after salary cuts and so on and so forth, it affected the medical department in the country, where many people actually moved into private practice.
Okay.
There was serious or massive brain drain because the doctors, you will not find a doctor. Imagine a doctor training a doctor and a specialist to be working for 150,000 francs or 200,000 francs. It is an abomination, because
these are people who spend about 12 years in school.
12 years in school after 12 years in the university.
Okay.
And if you have to go and specialize again, it's another probably 5 years or so. Right. Which can give us something like 15 or to 16 years.
Okay.
And then you come and pay them 200,000 francs. If you take that money, convert it to dollars, and know what a specialist doctor in the Western world, let me not even talk about Asia, earns in the US, it is big money. So it is regrettable.
Tabby Clarkson is actually chuckling at your comments, Henry Keja. Hi, Tabby Clarkson.
Hi, I'm Tariki, and welcome to
I hear it's been raining cats and dogs in Cameroon's capital in Yaoundé this morning. Are the rains over?
Yeah, the rains are over. There is sunshine now in Yaoundé.
Oh, I hope you didn't take ill. So that would mean you have to go to hospital. That's going to be dangerous considering the situation in hospitals at this point in time. So what's the picture in Yaoundé? How are the hospitals looking like? This is day 2 of the strike, started on Monday.
Some doctors are coming to work, and that they are taking care of some patients.
All right.
But it's equally important to note that the general appraisal here is that what is happening in hospitals today is unbelievable. Unbelievable that a medical doctor at the end of each month will go back home with a sum of 200,000 francs CFA.
Okay.
Many Cameroonians do believe that doctors have to be well treated, well paid, and that is what they are saying here in Yaoundé. It's true that the other day, the program La Reine that we all know on Canal International did not actually take place because the Minister of Public Health actually called authorities to Canada, telling them not to allow the program to go on because
Dr. Basson was supposed to be the main guest
on air,
right,
to actually criticize Mama Puda and to criticize equally the government as what concerns the treatment of doctors.
That's a scoop you're giving us, actually, Tabby Clarkson. I'm not sure why the authorities should have such influence on a TV station which is supposed to be independent.
That is the news because the presenter of the program, of course, they call him Rodrigue Tongue.
Rodrigue Tongue,
he was actually in negotiation with the Ministry of Public Health,
yes,
and equally Dr. Basson for him to actually organize that program. But the minister actually refused to send somebody.
Okay.
That if that program was to take place, then Canal will actually have a serious problem. And he actually went into contact with authorities of Canal 2, and that is why the program La Reine did not take place.
Okay.
And many Cameroonians are actually scandalized because some talk that Canadian, like other private channels, big radio or TV, they actually need to contribute to nation building. They have to criticize when it actually arises.
Of course.
That the press should be given the freedom to actually what he or she thinks is good for the Cameroonian society.
So I understand Minister Mama Fuda is among the most unpopular personalities in Yaoundé at this point in time. Is that correct, Tabi?
Yes, of course. He is quite very unpopular. Unpopular with what he is doing. Unpopular with the treatment that he is actually inflicting medical doctors. Because believe me, Tariq Divine, the other day we were at the City University Hospital here in Yaoundé, what they popularly call here, they say CHU Hospital. We went there and we saw that some medical personnel were deliberately, they were not working, they were there sitting. They were actually saying that they have been working, some have been working for months without even salaries, and that their benefits, their allowances are not given to them on time, and that they don't see why they have to continuously be working while they are not being paid. So there is some sort of disappointment as what concerns medical personnel vis-a-vis their minister, that is Mama Fuda.
Okay. Tabi Clarkson, thanks very much. I understand you must have come across some patients who are stranded in hospital. What are they doing? Are they rushing to the traditionalists and so on? Are they seeking other alternatives?
Some patients, they are not quite happy with what is happening because they are not actually receiving the medication that they ought to, and the attention that they ought to vis-a-vis medical doctors, because it's true that when you are not paid Tariq Divine, you cannot give your best, you cannot chip in your best when you are not paid. And these medical doctors who are not actually well paid, and they are asking for allowances, they are asking for benefits, they are asking for other things. In fact, they are not happy with the situation which is going on. And they are equally asking the government to put in place a system where any person can receive treatment, whether he is poor or whether he is rich. When he comes to when he or she comes to the hospital, the first treatment can be administered to her if he or she does not have the money at that moment. But then they are still with it, and we want to believe that things will change.
Of course, last week Bob Marley's death anniversary was celebrated. I remember one of his very popular songs in which he says, "A hungry man is an angry man, and likewise, a hungry mouth is going to be a mouth that does not speak any good." Thanks, Tabi Clarkson.
It's always a pleasure, Divine Tariq.
Thanks. We'll keep in touch with you and stay safe. If you fall sick, you are going to be going to hospital, so better don't. Catch you on Thursday probably. Elie Smith, as we speak, Jean-Marc Bikoko, that's the leader of the Central Syndicate for Union for the Public Sector, something like that. It's a trade union movement that represents workers of the public service, actually. He is currently, as we speak, if my information is correct, at the Prime Minister's office this Tuesday to hand him a letter addressed to Head of State President Paul Biya, in which he is calling for the dismissal, for the ejection from this government of Mama Fuda.
Well, I think he's just doing his wishful thinking on his part.
On Jean-Marc Bikoko's part.
Exactly, and I also hope that he's not going to be arrested. And the other thing is that there are precedents in this thing. Incompetent lords like Laurent Esso or Fame Ndongo have not been shown the door. Why will Mama Fuda be shown the door? Perhaps simply because maybe it's a strategic ministry. We may say that is the Ministry of Health. But the other thing, I think, it's not as if I'm supporting the doctors. This universal coverage or whatever thing they're looking for.
Universal medical coverage for
Cameroonians is something very important, because I've always said something. Africans in general, there are two sets of irresponsible people in this world. The Africans and the Arabs. There are people who do not know how to give value to human beings. Just go and look at how doctors or the medical personnel do treat people in our various hospitals. We have the star case of this lady who died at the Lakentini Hospital. Kumateke who died. But then when you see someone like Pierre Basson with his friends,
that's the president of CIMEC.
Yes, coming up with such a salutary solution, then you tend to say, okay, things are changing. Then I don't understand the reason why this government cannot listen to them when it is a government that just spends willy-nilly, steals the money of this country, ruin the economy just to solve the problem of the individuals. All they are preoccupied about is the elections next year, and I think that's the only thing. They just want to rule this country and continue to ruin this country. That's all. So I think that Pierre Bassong is right, and I stand by what they are doing.
Indeed,
and I
Kenyans
think they
across
should
the
stand
country
their ground
have
and
benefited from
until
our
this
part-
universal medical coverage is achieved.
Okay. Now, in fact, only days ago, on May the 11th, and in the lead up to the strike that started on Monday, Henry Kejang, Minister Mama Fuda actually, we're actually watching Jomo Kenyatta, that's Kenya's president. He was supposed to be telling us how he handled doctor strike in his country. We'll be coming back to that feed a bit later, but that's the subject of discussion. Minister Mama Fuda, he signed a decree on May the 11th, Kejang, transferring influential members of CIMEC, that's the Syndicate of Doctors of Cameroon, to some of the remotest hinterlands of Cameroon. You can imagine Dr. Bassong himself finding himself being relocated to some place in the East region from Bamenda in the northwest. I've forgotten the name of the village. It's called Somalomo.
Somalomo, which is not far from Salapumbi, somewhere around there. In fact, it is in the forest, and it takes approximately 7 hours to come to Betwa.
To Betwa, the regional capital.
The chief town of Betwa, which means that he has more dealings with the Congolese or the Gabonese, you know, because he is found in the Tridom, you know, the Jar and the
Jar forest.
The Jar forest, Tridom with other forests. So
Henry,
somewhere in the but what I want to say,
you're holding your glasses, but you don't need those glasses to see that the measure by Minister Mama Fuda is shockingly
shocking,
awkward
yes.
and punitive.
Minister Mama Fuda's administration for the past number of years has been the most scandalous ministry. In fact, administration. We have known cases of baby theft,
Vanessa Chanchu.
baby theft. We know cases of medical negligence because some junior unqualified staffs were recruited and they were not paid salary. So if somebody is sick, they come, they don't even take do the preliminaries or the preliminaries. They start pouring injecting your system with glucose, and the next couple of minutes you die of obsolete equipment in hospitals. And the last time was that they announced the painting of hospitals as an achievement. Whereas if you move to neighboring Nigeria, in one of the smallest states, you hear a governor giving a balance sheet of its administration midway. That is 3 years of having constructed 6 ultra-modern hospitals. It is appalling to hear that. And then you have protracted months of salary arrears. Though they don't want to hear that word salary arrears. They want to call it salary delays. But let me say that some labor delegates, if not all of our labor delegates, because when it happens in your division or in your region, you eventually become at the forefront. They are corrupt. Let me tell you, we had a strike action in this house some years back. We had the courage to go on strike. That was the first thing in the history of the press in this country. And our labor delegate at the time was a woman, a lady. She had negotiated with the house, and then we were talking a certain language. And finally, she took money and called us in the office. You supposed to stop these things and that. In fact, we know what they do. They go behind, meet the administration, they discuss, they take their money, and then the workers suffer.
Okay, Henry, I've listened to some people who conclude that the transfers enacted by Mama Fuda is only going to have backfiring effects and further radicalize the position of these doctors. Elie Smith, with your permission, I'll just list a couple of some of those transfers. Dr. Pierre-Yves Bassong, who is president of CIMEC, has been moved from the Bamenda Regional Hospital to Somalomo Health Center. That's in the East region.
That's a health
Dr.
center.
Ndudumu Patrick Christian, I just spoke with him on the phone right now, Secretary General of CIMEC. He's been transferred from the Center region to Mayo Baleo. That's in the Adamawa region. Dr. Kamtangi Claude Bernard from the Douala General Hospital to the Ngawi Health Center in the Adamawa region. Dr. Njoyo Sylvain from Bamenda to Mozogo in the far north. Elie Smith, I'm not sure how you understand this kind of of move by a minister who has gone through so much. Kejang was naming them, the Kuma Tekel case, the Vanessa Chanchu missing baby. He doesn't learn.
He doesn't learn because we are living in a dictatorial, irresponsible government. The thing is that it is a government that never protects their own, because Mama Fuda is very close to the regime, and what the regime wants is just somebody who will do cosmetic changes, as Kejang said, painting of hospitals. But the thing, the thing is that Mama Fuda doesn't learn. It's good for him because that's a kind of, it's from the old book, the old trick books of any dictatorship. He is behaving like Stalin, trying to take people, send them to the gulag or whatever. Okay. But the danger he's doing is that taking such people, sending them to where he wants to send, it is trying to extend the militancy of the medical doctors or the medical corps. Yeah. Because wherever they are going to go, they are going to preach this message of awareness that this government is not helping you. Okay. You need to stand up for your right.
Kejang Henry, now I don't understand how it happens. Dr. Basong, for example, we're going to talk to him in the next couple of minutes, so stay on. There's a scoop coming up. He was banned from state TV and radio. You know, probably the misunderstanding that happened
and
with
some private TV stations
with
too.
Laren at the weekend. He is a neurosurgeon.
Very
he is also indeed a lecturer at the University of Bamenda.
Good.
Now, he has been relocated to serve as chief medical officer at a health center in Somalomo, which is virtually unknown. Bamenda counts about 2 million people, some of whom depended on him for brain problems repairs. Somalomo hardly counts 1,000 people. Now, this is a sheer waste of resources. You take a neurosurgeon who's supposed to be
in a center,
in a big hospital, and you send him
to
a health center which lacks even basic equipment for neurology.
That is the worst administration. In fact, that is the what we call the greatest blunder of the season to do. I will just take Bason's case to say that Cameroon has one of the finest orthopedic doctors in the world, who was pushed to retirement, forcefully pushed to retirement.
Can you name him?
I keep his name. He's now in Senegal, and he is the finest in the world. Anybody can verify he's there. He's a Douala man.
No, we cannot.
If not, in fact, Pondo, Dr.
Who?
Pondo.
There are many Pondos.
Yes, he is an orthopedic doctor. No, he's an orthopedic doctor.
All right.
Right? He was pushed to retirement. But even his students, and who are one of the finest in the world, when you have a problem, they will ask you. I know Cameroonians who have gone right up to India, to Europe with problems. Then they refer them, go to Cameroon, there is this and this doctor. So it tells you how government is trying to frustrate people rather than repairing the damages.
Okay.
I think if somebody like Basong going to stay in the forest will probably ask for, or maybe abandon the job, pick up another contract somewhere with the United Nations or with any country, and that is how the government suffers. The students who are studying in the University of Bamenda taught by him, because he will not have the time to leave the forest in the east region of the country to go and pick up his lessons or his classes in Bamenda. The students will remain as they are, and they will never learn anything good.
While patients who used to depend on him
will die, and families will suffer.
To Somalomo.
Good. They will not travel because Somalomo is not having the necessary
equipment.
The people will die on the way before. In fact, they will die before they get to him.
Okay.
So it's stupid. In fact, the minister is listening, and he knows that what he did is not correct. Rather than repairing the stitches, he is now doing everything to tear off the stomach.
Okay, now Elie Smith was struggling to get to Dr. Yves Pierre Basong, the president of the Syndicate of Medical Doctors of Cameroon. But before we do Elie Smith, Dr. Yves Basong and others have gone on record to say they will not respect the minister's decision transferring them, because it violates not only administrative regulations in Cameroon, but also violates the norms of the International Labour Organization. Are these people facing the sack? Do you see them being kicked out of the public service very soon?
They might be kicked out of the public service, but they have done a good job. It's very good. I like to see Cameroonians like that, because I've always been very, very wary about a lot of Cameroonians who have a culture of immediacy with no culture for sacrifice. If they have decided to defy an unjust and cruel law, they have only done justice, and I think they have to become they must inspire a number of Cameroonians to refuse to move to the dictates of this corrupt, irresponsible government. So I think Mr. Fuda, they need to defy Mr. Fuda because he is really incompetent.
Now, Henry, I like to be precise when I give these details. These are the demands posed by the doctors: an upward review of their salaries and bonuses, insurance allowances, healthcare insurance for all Cameroonians, the speedy integration of graduating doctors into the public service, and an increase in their retirement ages from 55 to 65. While these may be logical or illogical depending on where you stand to look at them, but how can doctors leave school and stay 2-3 years on the job without salaries? It happens.
How can teachers leave school and stay 6 years without salaries?
Because they don't have weapons.
So this is fertile ground. This is fertile ground for corruption in the hospitals.
How will you leave the advanced school of magistracy in division of finance? How will you leave the medical school? I'm sorry, the war college, and then before you get to your job place,
position,
your salary is already in your account.
The selective treatment.
Selective treatment, which is very dangerous. Now, these are the medical doctors. After school, the government is losing, just like we were saying the last time when the teachers went on strike. You train them, you don't absorb them, they move into private practice. You train them, you don't absorb them, there is brain drain, they move out of the country. So now the government is failing to plan. So it becomes a problem. You cannot train medical doctors across the country, hundreds of them, you don't absorb them, you send them to the wilderness.
That's a policy. Some say it sows the seeds of corruption in our hospitals, especially public hospitals, Elie Smith. But let me give you a couple of statistics once again, and I love them. Statistics. There are 3,000 doctors currently serving in Cameroon. That's from the National Order of Doctors of Cameroon. But there are 9,000 doctors, some of whom have been trained in Cameroon, who have fled such deplorable conditions to go work abroad. They're not serving Cameroon anymore.
Yes, but to the discharge of the government of Cameroon, Cameroon is not the only country where you have this brain drain of medical doctors, nurses leaving to go and work in other countries.
But it's alarming.
It's alarming. It's alarming.
For a country where you have only 2 doctors for every 10,000 citizens.
It has to be corrected. The problem with the government of Cameroon is that you said something here. Their preoccupation is for those who have arms, weapons. They can pay the military men, they can pay the policemen, because those policemen and women or the soldiers cannot attack them. But medical doctors or teachers, they are armless, as you say. They don't have any weapons to threaten them. But I think the government of the people are the medical doctors. Cameroonians have only themselves to be blamed. What Bassong is doing shows that they have a weapon. It's not necessarily because you have a rifle that you can threaten somebody, but if you are united, a people united can never be defeated. So what the people of Cameroon needs to do simply is that they need to now hold this government accountable, and it is the right time. They want to win the election next year. So people need to come out massively to demand everything they want to. You might dispute and ask this question: why is it that they want to prolong their retirement ages from 55 to 65? Yes, there are some questions to be asked. But on the whole, the demands... It's a kind of selfish in some way. Because the thing is that we are in a very young country, right? We are not in France or in the United States where you have this problem of aging population rapidly. We have a young group of people coming up. That's disputing, because you cannot... Not every demand is founded or justifiable. But on the whole, when they're asking for universal medical coverage, in order to in also the improvement of their salaries, if a medical doctor earns $100 and $150, it is chicken change. I think that Bassong is doing the right thing, and others also should follow suit.
Okay. Now, Henry, we have less than 5 minutes to go.
But then 55 years is still, you are young as a medical or doctor, Elie, to give more, because we know.
But they are private practices.
Experience in such circumstances usually comes with age.
Yes.
Henry Kejan, CIMEC says round 3 of because we are round 2 of the doctor strike in Cameroon. CIMEC says round 3 has been slated from the 12th to the 14th of June this year. Round 4 has been fixed for July, and the syndicate wants that if at round 4 their grievances remain unresolved, the strike would take a limitless duration, and that the government will only have to bear the consequences. But the paradox is that we're just from celebrating the 131st International Labour Day, and Cameroon was, parading the theme for this year, which hinged on social dialogue. Mr. Mamafuda seems to lack a sense of social dialogue.
Yes, that is just a lack of sense of social dialogue, and this has actually caused, in fact, it is actually going to protract the problem. If you don't, rather than bringing these people, solve the problems gradually, you don't want to. You talk about the Kenyan experience. The Kenyan government did much to solve the problems. When the time
even though a couple of doctors were actually arrested.
Even a couple of doctors were arrested.
Yes.
Some actually fled the country.
Yes.
Some sacked. Because
and the country had to borrow medics from Tanzania.
Borrow medical doctors from Tanzania. But now the people in their country said, okay, we will see how these doctors will come and work in our country.
We're not there yet.
It becomes a very difficult thing. I don't know if Cameroon will be borrowing doctors from Senegal or from Cote d'Ivoire, or from Nigeria, or from Equatorial Guinea or Gabon.
Equatorial Guinea doesn't have doctors.
Wait, I'm just asking.
With
Donald, from Kinshasa.
Donald Njilo on the machines, Emmanuel Bivirica on the cameras. We're just asking for 2 more minutes to be able to introduce, a teaser, second major talking point, which we will definitely come back on Saturday. Elie Smith, there's no surprise, the SDF is threatening to drag a couple of francophone newspapers to court for alleging that it collected 6.5 billion CFA francs from the government of Cameroon, the ruling CPDM government, only to turn around and announce a boycott of National Day celebrations on May the 20th.
Yes, but if you look at
these papers accuse Chairman Nijon Frundi of political banditry.
Yeah,
that's a big word.
It's a big word, but those newspapers were bought over by the government. If
they're
you look at this, they are pro-government newspapers. Right. Look at papers that come out at piecemeal. Then all of a sudden they are coming out and ganging on the SDF. You have to understand the SDF is a legitimate party in this country. And in that list, I think Kejan showed it to me. The SDF is not the only political party that is having some subvention from the government. There's a list. The problem with the government of Cameroon is that, and another thing is that the SDF is not the only political party. You have the MRC of
the 7 parties that
have Kamto. You have CPP of Kawala. You have the UPC. Why this fixation on the SDF? It simply shows that the SDF is really a great party in this country. And I think it's an opportunity for the SDF now to correct some wrongs that they have been doing. To me, the SDF is right, and those newspapers are a shame to this profession. Because, a number of Cameroonian journalists are so corrupt, they are filthy, they take money anywhere, they have little or no credibility. And the example is this group of paper called L'Indépendant. Let them do their job honestly. Let them go to West Cameroon and see how people are suffering there, rather than come to write this falsehood that they have done around. It is fake news, and the SDF is right to defend themselves.
Now, Jean Tumelu is the Secretary General of the SDF. He has refuted these allegations, Henry Kejan. He singled out Le Soir and L'Indépendant newspapers, which are all francophone. And, he says he will come back with a detailed explanation of the government grants to political parties across Cameroon and how such money is managed in the SDF's news outlet called Echo. Why does he have to wait? He has a chance to spring up all the facts he can at this point in time.
Not waiting without necessarily speaking like somebody from the communications department of the Social Democratic Front.
That's official. That's a scoop.
No, I am not saying that. I'm just
Go on. You give it to us.
No. So sometimes you need to just wave these things aside because it's sheer ignorance.
No, this is big because it may destabilize your political ambitions for next year.
Political ambition, but I don't think to that extent because if some other journalists who are corrupt actually blew off the flames of what L'Indépendance did, then it's a big disgrace. But then the SDF has its media outlet, the SDF Echo, which it will use to publish the detailed report of what they use, because that is the only medium that they can submit.
No, I think the SDF would have come out and say something.
SDF, yes, of course. You see, let me tell you, the SDF is an organized party, for what I know. And they don't just rush there because somebody has insulted you. You just mount.
And that's why somebody says the party should pass through the National Communication Council before even going to court. That's a logical approach.
Yeah, it is needless to pass through the National Communication Council. The National Communication Council monitors what all of us do. And the National Communication Council can even call the attention of this newspaper that is apparently pouring filth or telling lies. The SDF must not necessarily go and tell the National Communication Council that I have been attacked at this level. The Communication Council monitors what is going on and can call the paper to book. But then you have to know that the SDF, like Elie said, is a strong party and it knows how to do things the right way.
Okay, the government expects that when it gives a party like the SDF, Elie Smith, 6.5 billion francs, and that's the allegations in the papers, when such parties receive that kind of money, they should only be able to pay allegiance to the government and not turn around and say, well, we're not going to march on May the 20th. Yeah,
but if the government think that they can just buy people or throw their money away, then they are stupid. The SDF is a party that represents the basis. And this, the problem with Cameroonians, especially Francophone Cameroonian journalists, they are so filthy and so corrupt. Now, the thing is that the 6 billion, was it given to corrupt the SDF or was it given
under the canopy of subvention
that the state has to give to any political party?
Okay,
but then there's a problem.
If you don't mind, because we're virtually out of time, let's listen to Joshua Osei, Honorable Joshua Osei. He's the first vice president of the SDF, and he comes back here now to explain why the party intends to stay away from May 20 celebrations this week.
I think it is clear the national chairman instructed in an internal note all electoral district chairmen and regional chairmen of the party that we will not celebrate the 20th May marking the 45th anniversary of the unification of Cameroon, and we will not celebrate the 26th of May marking the 27th anniversary of the SDF. We did not call for a boycott. We are simply saying that we will not be part of the celebrations marking these days because we cannot celebrate when our national unity is in jeopardy. We cannot celebrate when leaders of the civil society are in prison because they wanted to make this country better. We cannot celebrate when nearly half of the students in Cameroon going towards a blank year, whereas what we're doing is for the future, and the government is unable to bring solutions to all those problems today. So we believe that there is nothing to take home, there is nothing to celebrate about, and that's why we will not participate in any celebrations come 20th May. And in line with that, we decided that we will as well not celebrate our 27th anniversary.
The first vice national chairman, please, there's an issue of semantics here. Celebration, celebrating, boycotting.
I don't know why you want me to translate what the national chairman has said. The national chairman made it abundantly clear that we are not going to celebrate. Now, if you want to call it by another word, that's you're free to do so. But essentially, what the national chairman has clearly put out is that we are not going to celebrate the 20th May, and we're not going to celebrate the 27th May.
You did not,
26th May.
And the SDF did not call any other party not to celebrate, or any other persons?
In no way can an internal note. This was an internal note by the national chairman, so in no way can an internal note be addressed to other Cameroonians than those who are members of the party.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I think it is clear.
I must make this abundantly clear that that feed was brought to us thanks to the technical know-how of aspiring SDF Shadow Cabinet Communication Minister sitting right here, Henry Kejang Atembe. Thanks very much. And you did the interview with your phone?
Well, I must make it very clear to
briefly
the viewers that my phone is the latest phone in the world market.
Okay.
You can verify.
We're going to come to see it. I will try and verify that. Thanks
you
very
saw the
much.
quality of the pictures. So
I even actually enjoyed the sound more than the pictures. It was perfect. The pictures were not crispy or anything like that. Thanks very much.
Phone that will compete with this particular phone will come 1.5 years after.
Okay, that's fine. We're still going to be able to verify that. Elie Smith, thanks once again for being there.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
The complaint is that the time is too short?
Yeah, good things need to be short.
Thanks very much for understanding.
Yeah.
And that's how we pull the curtains on this edition of Tough Talk. Kindly tune in same time Thursday. We'll probably extend it to another 1 hour and 30 minutes with the approval, of course, of the technicians on board. Ngilo Donald behind the dashboard, and of course Emmanuel Bivika behind the camera. In those days we used to call them the pinhole cameras, but these ones are modern, probably less modern than Henry's telephone. Until Thursday, stay blessed and run away from trouble. Bye-bye.
Run away from trouble before my mouth for that car.